Good afternoon, everybody, and I'd like to start by thanking my colleagues for this opportunity to speak. This morning's excellent presentations were wide-ranging, and I'm going to build on them with some reflections on developments in legal education from the very late 20th century. Legal education, as we have seen, has always generated debate, though the debates vary with each century and decade. In recent times, they have ranged from what should be taught to who should be taught, the purpose of a law degree, the place and role of law schools, public legal education, the opportunities available to students during their degree, and the growth in the number of law schools. There is a tension, as we heard earlier, between law as academic and law as professional training, and the requirements for legal education for the purposes of entering the legal profession differ between the nations that make up the UK. I'm going to focus here on legal education and law schools, and in particular consider the role and impact of the OU's own law school. Perhaps here, in the interest of transparency, I should declare an interest, as I was part of the original team for the very first law courses offered by the Open University. In the 1990s, there was a strong and widely held belief that law could not be successfully studied at a distance. Law should be taught through traditional means such as lectures and seminars. The extracurricular activities that existed, such as mooting competitions, were often aimed at those intent on entering a career as an advocate or barrister. There was some acknowledgement of a law degree as developing transferable skills, but focus was often on a law degree's entry to the legal professions that set out explicit requirements for the law degrees being used as entry points to professional training. As we heard earlier, polytechnics had begun to challenge the professions and traditional views as to how and why law should be taught. But now turning to our experiences here at the Open University.
Carol, you're now muted.
Sorry, Caroline. So turning now to the experiences here at the Open University. The Open University was established in 1969. Its mission was to be open to people, places, methods and ideas. It challenged ideas as to how degrees could be taught, delivered and assessed. However, despite its successes and achievements, the Open University, with its mission of openness and social justice, was reluctant to enter into the traditional environment of the law school. Law was not included in the early curriculum plans. There were concerns over practical arrangements such as access to law libraries. The legal professions thought it couldn't be done, and there were fears that there would be just such a rush of law students that other subjects and universities would see a downturn in numbers. By the mid-1990s, an institution which had become a success and a valuable part of the higher education sector across the UK, an institution which had a history of challenging perceptions and notions about education, a disruptor and a national treasure, remained reluctant to take the plunge and enter this traditional world. There were two questions to which the majority of legal educators and the legal professions had answered negatively. These were, could law be taught successfully at a distance, and could law be taught successfully with an open access policy? Given that the London External LLB programme had been running for many years, these negative answers seem a little odd. Within the university itself, there were disagreements and concerns expressed. Practical matters such as access to a law library were seen as a barrier. This despite the solutions faculty had found on other degrees, for example, the home experiment kits shown here. However, by the mid-1990s, plans had begun to take shape and a solution proposed to offer a law degree in partnership. Whilst looking for a partner institution, there were also internal debates as to where the law department should sit, in which faculty was it best situated. This was eventually resolved with faculty expressions of interest. The then Open University Business School, OUBS, with its prestigious MBA, hadn't initially been interested, but put in a late entry, and law went to join OUBS as a small centre. The partner chosen for the first law degree was the then College of Law, an organisation we heard about earlier, which was set up in 1962 from the merger of the leading tutorial firm of Gibson and Weldon and the Law Society School of Law. The plan was for each partner to use their expertise. The College of Law would provide the materials and the Open University would provide the delivery and student support. Debates took place over the size and shape of the curriculum. At the time, there were 7 foundations of legal knowledge that students who wanted to go on and qualify as a lawyer in England and Wales had to pass at undergraduate level, and this requirement shaped that initial curriculum. A decision was taken to offer all OU law courses at either levels 2 or 3. That decision also reflected some of the widely expressed concerns that law could not be taught with an open access policy and at a distance. So initially 2 routes to a law degree were offered. A route which involved studying 2 level 1 modules from other faculties, such as maths or sociology or criminology, before embarking on law. There was also a graduate entry route where those with a degree could begin their studies with law at level 2. In OU speak, level 1 equates to a first year undergraduate experience and level 2 to second year undergraduate. We also talk in points or credits, with 10 credits or points equating to 100 hours of study. And so in the late 1990s, the journey of establishing law at the OU began. The first law course began on the 7th of February 1998 with 861 students, which were scattered across the UK and continental Europe. To accommodate professional requirements, 4 law courses had or were being developed. W200 Understanding Law, W201 Law the Individual and the State, W300 Law Agreements, Rights and Responsibilities, and W301 Law Ownership and Trusteeship. By including 2 foundation subjects in each module, the Centre for Law was already indicating an innovative and unusual approach. Students in those pre-internet days were taught by a mix of manuals, readers, textbooks, videos and audios. They received a box at the start of their studies with their materials, and optional face-to-face tutorials were offered. These were arranged by the OU's 13 regional and nation offices. In those early days, we spent a lot of time poring over maps to ensure tutorials were as close to student locations as possible. The aim was to create a high-quality, innovative, engaging and interactive learning. We succeeded, and feedback from students and tutors was overwhelmingly positive, though we did have some who, having succeeded in other careers, had to readjust to legal thinking and approaches. It was not always easy or straightforward, however, as we faced challenges both within and without the OU. In those early days, the profession scrutinised everything we offered as it was produced. We were a small central team challenging not only perceptions of legal education, but perceptions within the OU itself as to how degrees could be delivered. Within the OU, a new phrase developed, but law is different. From those initial 761 students, law grew rapidly, and the partnership with the College of Law became the second most successful in the OU's history. The second, as the most successful partnership, has been the long-standing partnership with the BBC. This helps indicate what was achieved by that small group of staff. Heading up the then Centre for Law was the late Professor Gary Slapper. His enthusiasm for opening up access to legal education was shown early in his own career when he rang the Open University to inquire about jobs in its law school, only to be told that there wasn't one. We did face hostility. In those early years, our presence was not welcomed by many other law schools or was simply ignored. There was nervousness. We were doing things differently, at a distance, on scale, and in partnership with an institution not widely known for its academic courses. However, we were successful in growing the market rather than fragmenting it, and we went on to become the largest taught undergraduate law programme in Europe. The law school was able to offer opportunities not just to students to study law in different ways, but to our many associate lecturers, our ALs. They helped enrich this new project and enable the OU to teach in places other universities simply couldn't reach. In recruiting our ALs, we were able to draw upon both academic institutions and the professions. We were able to offer opportunities to individuals at whatever stage in their career. Some ALs have stayed with us since those very early days. Others have used their OU experience to change or enter new careers. Through our innovations in being open in our recruitment, we enriched our student experiences in ways that were not necessarily possible for other institutions at that time. A number of ALs did come from more traditional law schools, and through their AL work and the training we offered, were able to share what we were doing more widely in the sector, and gradually barriers came down. From our very early days, we involved our ALs in developing materials, in assessing what we were doing, In our extracurricular activities such as open days and events, ALs have always been the face of the OU to students. The materials we wrote taught the students, and our ALs facilitated their learning. There were many events where the students came to meet the team, and it became common to see queues of students waiting for Professor Slapper's signature on his textbook, something perhaps more uncommon in traditional settings. In line with the OU's mission, we shared our approaches at conferences and through organisations such as the British Council and the Association of Commonwealth Law Schools. As other new law schools emerged, we stopped being the new and different and provided evidence for what could be achieved. However, we weren't content. Law was still not being offered as part of an open access at level 1, and having completed work on our level 2 and 3 modules, we began to plan for an open access level 1. This proved a challenge, and we faced opposition from both within and without the OU. We wanted to use our expertise and knowledge to create an open access route which helped equip and empower students. It took several years for plans to be approved. Concerns about whether law could be taught with an open access policy and at level 1 had not disappeared. We eventually gained approval to develop one 60-credit level 1 module and went on to develop that module in-house. College of Law staff would act as critical readers, but the module was owned by the OU itself, a significant first in our journey. Our challenge was now what to teach. There was an introduction to law within the W200 materials, and we simply couldn't repeat introductions to introductions. At this point, I'd like to note something else that was unique about the OU's law school. We had and have students across all 4 UK nations. Devolution had begun in the same year as the OU Law School welcomed its first students, and it was beginning to change the UK's legal cultures. Turning back now to level 1. We knew we had students who wanted to know about law but who did not want a degree, and the external environment was changing around us. We therefore needed to develop something that was both standalone and provided preparation for the level 2 and level 3 modules. The result was W100, Law, Rules, Rights and Justice, an Introduction to Law, a wide-ranging course, and if you're interested, still for sale on eBay, Amazon and other internet platforms today. Through W100, students were challenged to think and question. We developed course readers to introduce students to different forms of legal writing and academics texts. We thought about the content and the significance of visually moving through the course itself. As one student said, it looks at first sight to be an excellent course with some thought-provoking text. Just defining rules, customs, habits and roles has taken me a good part of today. By this stage, the internet was beginning to play a bigger role, and colleagues in OUBS were using products such as First Class to enable students to communicate online. This enabled us to move our own materials online and offer both remote and face-to-face tutorials. Through W100, we were truly able to offer an open access law degree, and it changed the way legal education in ways we didn't imagine and weren't recognised at the time. Changes then came thick and fast, and we were able to create introductory courses on the law to Scotland, where we used the Commonwealth Games as a focus for a case study. 10-credit open access course was developed, where we chose a few key events in life to introduce students to law and legal principles. The OU's Open Learn project, first set up in 2006, benefited us. Open Learn is a free learning platform delivered as part of the OU's Royal Charter commitment to support the well-being of community. This enabled us to make freely available extracts from our courses and develop standalone resources, such as the one in law in Wales and most recently on an introduction to immigration law. With our partners, the College of Law, options in employment law, commercial law and practice, family law and company law were developed. Whilst not as popular as our other modules, they provided opportunities for students to explore new areas. The Open University library staff began to play an increasingly important role as we invested in library resources at the OU, and they have quietly undertaken some revolutionary work, including around accessibility and sharing their knowledge and expertise with publishers to the benefits of students across the sector. In 2011, our LLM degree was launched. By this time, our partner, now the University of Law, had gained its own degree awarding powers, and by 2013, the partnership had been ended. In 2013, we offered our first law degree to be written entirely by OU academic staff, central academics, student experience managers and ALs. Our growth continued and enabled us to develop joint degrees with other faculties. That 2013 degree was highly regarded. It was a degree that took a critical approach to legal study, that challenged students to think and interact with the law, that they should not be passive scholars, is now itself being rewritten. New developments such as our Open Justice Centre have made contributions to the sector and have been welcomed. Change from the challenges and prejudices we initially faced. Sadly, colleagues from those early days, Professor Gary Slapper, Jane Goody and Aude Leonetti, didn't live to see the law school reach its 20th year. They did not see the law school become an accepted part of the legal education sector and the many achievements of our law school alumni. We challenged accepted norms and practices and proved that law could be taught successfully, both at a distance and with an open access policy. We convinced the professions that it was possible to do this and maintain standards. Our approach looked for opportunities and succeeded through teamwork. It is only in pausing and looking back that the role the OU Law School has played in changing the face of legal education and legal publishing is clear. As a growing law school with over 5,000 students, we have moved on to become an integral and respected part of the sector. Some of our next challenges are clear, but these are challenges we now share with the rest of the sector. Thank you.